All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing one of my favorite thriller novels of all time, and that is Robert Ludlum's The Matarese Circle. The Matarese Circle. I don't know how you pronounce it. I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, this thing came out in 1979. Let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. I actually quite like the new cover they gave all of the Robert Ludlum books new covers that kind of all match and have kind of this flashy design. I've got them all up here. I probably should have brought some of them down, but we'll pan over through my library. All my Robert Ludlum books are right up there. But anyway, they all look nice on the shelf together. So we'll give the covers an A rating. Not a D, not a C, not a C minus. Not a B or even a A minus. A rating for the cover. Okay. Came out in 1979. I read this probably in the early 90s when I was pretty young. It was my favorite thriller novel for the longest time. For the longest time, this was the epitome, the top, the pinnacle of thriller novels in my book. I just absolutely loved this book, but only read it once. So this reread is only the second time I've read it. How does it hold up? Does it still stand the test of time as my favorite? We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it pretty much does. It's dope. It's a dope book. I mean, so the opening scene is dynamite. In fact, I remember the first time I read this in the 90s. All of this has several opening set pieces that are just action-packed, political intrigue, thriller novel, dope spy craft, assassination stuff. And I remembered, to this day, I remembered each of the scenes in this book pretty crystal clear. So as I was rereading this book, I was just kind of like, well, I've been here. I know this. I remember this. This left an indelible impression on me as a kid. And it was fun to reread it. I mean, there's an opening scene, dynamite. It's this assassination of the chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's a decorated war general, but he's got a real kinky side. And the assassination is like this sex-fueled sort of weird, assassination set up to make him look like the kinky sex fiend that he was. And then there's some more murders that happen, some more assassinations that happen over in Russia. First assassination, of course, happens in the U.S. The next assassination, these murders take place in Russia. They are made to look like a bear attack. And then we go into, and now the people are thinking, is this the Matarese assassin crime syndicate that's doing all of this stuff? We jump to a scene in Amsterdam, which is cool, where we meet our main character, Schofield. He's an old school spy. I mean, this is old school spycraft. This book was written in 79. So there's no cell phones. There's none of this. There's no high tech. I mean, these guys are doing spycraft literally with payphones. I mean, literally putting quarters in a payphone, using binoculars to spy on people rather than elaborate camera systems that are hooked up to the World Wide Web and can zoom in and find exactly, how far, the camera systems now, you can zoom in and you can read, I'm holding you can read, what I'm saying. They zoom in a lot. No, this guy was actually doing spycraft through binoculars on the top of a building in Amsterdam, looking down a street, and he's like using a phone, and there's a guy at the payphone down there, and they're like looking at this guy. It's crazy how it was back then. Technology, but in some ways I miss the old days. Anyway, also this scene takes place in Amsterdam. Oh, and tape recorders too. They're using fucking tape recorders. Anyway, in Amsterdam, there's and I can't even imagine Amsterdam filled with phone booths at this point, because I've been to Amsterdam a lot. And there's a lot of bicycles, yes, but I didn't see one phone booth. But I can't even imagine if it was filled with phone booths. Now, the scene takes place on the Kalverstraat which is a street in Amsterdam, which I've been on a lot. And it is just, it's like a shopping mall that stretches 5 miles through Amsterdam. It is just a dope street. And we would walk it all the time, full of restaurants and shops, high-end shops, all the way down to just dollar store stuff. And it's, of course, it's full of trinkets and souvenirs, Amsterdam. It's a gift shop type of a thing. But it's got a lot of high-end stuff, too. When I was reading this as a kid, of course, I'd never been to the Kalverstraat Street. So it didn't really register to me what it was really like. Now that I have been there and seen it, I could picture the whole thing. This is true as my adult self going to places in Europe a lot and Hong Kong and then reading spy novels set in these very places I've been. Opens up a whole new world of enjoyment for these books. So travel, people, travel a lot. So then we got our other person who's in our other main character who's a Russian. So Schofield is doing some spying for the Americans in Amsterdam. Then we get Vasily, who's his opening scene is in Moscow. It's gripping. I still remember that one to this day. And those are our two main kind of people, the Vasily and Schofield. And I will, just before I get much more into the plot, I'm just going to read the back of it because it's just a little paragraph and it explains what's happening way better than I could have. But an international circle of killers, the Matarese, will undoubtedly take over the world within just 2 years. I mean, that's crazy that a circle of killers could take control of the world in 2 years. Only 2 rival spies have the power to stop them, Schofield and Vasily. One works for the CIA, one works for the KGB. They share a genius for espionage and a life of explosive terror and violence. But though these sworn enemies once vowed to terminate each other, they must now become allies. Because only they possess the brutal skills and ice-cold nerves vital to their mission. Destroy the Matarese assassins. Well, the Matarese, and that's another thing, is we get to go into Italy and Corsica and different places where the Matarese have sort of, they're like a mafia is really what they are. And then we get to visit all these different cool international locations in this Robert Ludlum thriller. But every Robert Ludlum thriller, including the Bourne Supremacy and the Bourne Identity, they all take us to exotic European locations and even Asian locations, and even American, well, everywhere in the world. They go everywhere. In the universe, really. Okay, still a 10 out of 10. Robert Ludlum and Tom Clancy were the first thriller writers that I really got into, and I still hold a fondness in my heart for their works. I think their works still to this day hold up and stand above and beyond even some of the more modern day thriller writers that we've got, like Brad Thor, Jack Carr. Those guys are great and I love their stuff, but I still go back to the old school and still love it. You know, Ludlum, Tom Clancy, John le Carré, a lot of these guys just were knocking it out of the park back in the 1970s. This is a dope book, folks.